everyone, this is Deepika Patel and welcome to the SchoolQuizz class. So let's start our today's class, and today's class will be based on the sample question paper. And we have done till 2 marks question, okay, which is the numbering is the 7, okay. So there are 7 questions of 2 marks. So we have completed that in our sample question paper first. Now we have to move to the 3 question marks, okay. And how many are they? There are 6 questions of 3 marks, okay. So we will see all those questions. So let's start. And the first question is the how plants raised by vegetative propagation is different from plants produced from seeds. Write in 3 points. Okay. So the question is asking about the vegetative propagation, and also the plants which is produced from the seeds. So there are 2 types that the plants can be produced by the vegetative propagation. And the vegetative propagation, there is cutting, layering, and the grafting. So what is the cutting? So in the cutting, we take the stem of the plant and put in the soil, and they grow. Okay, so the plant can grow. We also give them the manure, cow dung, okay, so water, okay, so they can grow. So in the cutting, the stem is used for the plant to produce. Now in the layering, we use that if there is a plant and there is a plant also. So we'll take the stem of this plant and we'll take the stem of this plant, and in this plant, what we will do, we'll take the stem of this plant and put it in the soil. And after some time, when we regularly do the manure things and the water, we give the stem which is sown in the soil. So they grow in a plant after some time, and when the plant is produced, so we can cut the stem. So then this stem is cut and detached by the plant. So this is how the layering is done. And in the grafting, we will take a stem of the plant and we'll join this stem with the root of other plant. Okay. So suppose there is a white rose. So we'll take the stem of this white rose. Okay. Suppose this is a stem, and this stem will be joined in the root of this plant. So here this stem will be joined, and after some time you will see that a new plant is produced by this stem and the root. Okay. So this is how the grafting is done. So this is called the vegetative propagation. Okay. These are the methods of the vegetative propagation. And in the seed and the plant which is produced from the seeds, you already know, we put the seeds in the soil and we'll do the watering, and we'll do the manures. Okay. So that's how the plant is produced after some time by the seeds. Okay. So these are the seeds method, and these are the vegetative propagation method, which is the cutting, layering, and the grafting. Now the question is asking for the difference that the plant which is raised by the vegetative propagation, how it is different from the plants which is produced from the seeds. So you have to tell them the difference between the plants which is produced from the seeds and the plant which is raised by the vegetative propagation. So you have to tell them the difference and the importance. Okay. And you have to tell them in 3 points. There is strictly telling in the question that you have to write it in 3 points. There is no other point than the 3 points. Okay. So let's see how we can answer this question. Here. So we can answer like this. Plants raised by vegetative propagation can bear flowers and fruits earlier than those produced from seeds. Now, so these are the 3 points. Okay, the first point, the second point, and the third point. So in the first point, you tell that plants which is raised by the vegetative propagation can bear flowers, means in this the flowers and the fruits are the fruits present, but it is earlier than the ooze produced from seeds. So the flowers and fruits come earlier than this plant which is produced by the seeds. Okay. Next, all plants produced by vegetative propagation are genetically similar to the parent plant than those produced from the seeds. So in the vegetative propagation, we take the stem, roots, leaves, okay, of the plant. So this is obvious that the plant which is produced by this plant, that is the stem, leaves, and the roots, so they are similar to their parents, genetically similar to their parents. But in the seeds, you know that some seeds are less in size, less in size. Some seeds are bigger in size, and some seeds also wrinkled. Some seeds also healthy. So there are many type of seeds of the same plant. So when we put seeds in the soil, so it is not guaranteed that all the seeds will be similar to their parent seeds or the parent plant. Okay, so this is why we produce the plant. We found better that if we produce by the plants by the vegetative propagation, so they are genetically similar to the parent. But in the seeds which is produced, but in the plants which is produced by the seeds, they are not guaranteed that they are genetically similar to their parent. So these are the difference between the vegetative propagation and the seeds. Okay. Now next points we can write, like the vegetative propagation methods also make possible the propagation of plants that have lost the capacity to produce seeds. See, in this method, what is the main thing in this method? We use the plant, we use the parts of the plant like the stems, roots, leaves. Okay, so we do not need the seed to produce the plant. That's why it makes the possible, it makes possible to produce the plant in a healthy way than the seeds, because in the seeds, some seeds some seeds are healthy, some seeds are not healthy, some seeds are wrinkled, some seeds are well in shape, some seeds are small in size, some seeds are bigger in size. So they lost their capacity to produce. Why? Because if seed is healthy and the plant is produced, and they again get a seed from this plant, so this seed might be not healthy, small in size, wrinkled. So you can see from a healthy seeds also there are seeds which is produced like not healthy, not well like the parent seed. Okay, so they lost the capacity. So tell me that the wrinkled seed and the small in size seeds, not healthy seeds, they produce the plant very well? No, because they lost the capacity to produce. Okay, so that's why the vegetative propagation method made possible that the propagation of plants also do for that, for those that have lost the capacity to produce. Okay, so these are the difference between the plants which is produced by the vegetative propagation and which is produced from the seeds. So we have write it in 3 points as the question is asking, and that's how we complete the answer. Now let's move to the next question. So the next question is asking that what are the type of waste? What are the type of waste we found in our kitchen, and by what means we can make this waste helpful for our environment and usable for us? So there are many types of waste we found in our kitchen, like the organic waste and the inorganic waste. What are the organic waste? Which are organic waste, example like the peel of any vegetables, fruits, and inorganic waste like metal cans, plastic bags. So the organic waste are the biodegradable waste. Okay, biodegradable waste. Why? Because after some time degradable waste. Because after some time they can go back into the soil. They can go back into the soil. How? See, by these biodegradable waste, we can make manure. Okay, we make manure, biogas, etc., etc. Okay, so that's how we use them for the soil, for the fertilizer, for the soil that soil can rich in, sorry, rich in fertilizers. Okay, so that's how we use this waste, and but the non biodegradable waste, they are present in our environment for a long time. Okay, and we cannot make it possible that they can go back into the soil. Why? Because they are like the plastic bags and the metal cans. So what we can do for them, we can recycle them, we can reuse them, so our environment will be protected from these type of waste. Why? Because when we recycle them, suppose this metal can be used, it is a used metal can. So in a factory, when this go back to into the factory, so they, by this waste, they make a new metal can by this waste. So this new metal can will be used further. So that's how the recycle chain works. Okay, and that's how we can use the non biodegradable waste for our environment friendly purpose. Okay, recycle, reuse. Okay, so how we can write the answer? Let's see. So firstly, you have to tell them what are the type of waste. So the type of waste we found in our kitchen is like, we have to tell them what type of waste we have found in our kitchen, like fruits, vegetables, food, etc. These are organic waste, or we can also called sorry here called we can also call biodegradable waste. These biodegradable waste broken down by biological process. Biological process means microorganisms. Okay, and by the micro process and can go back into the soil again. We can reduce this waste by making manure, biogas, and make environment friendly and usable for us. So this is for the biodegradable waste. So this waste broken down the biological process. You can see the vegetables and the peels. Okay, peels of the vegetables after some time they rotten. Okay, rotten. So why it is rotten? Because of the broken down of the biological process, because of the microorganisms, the bacteria, fungi, okay, and can go back into the soil again. We can reduce this waste by making manure and biogas. We can make manure from this biodegradable waste, right? And make environment friendly and usable for. Another type of waste like plastics, polythene bags, cans, etc. These are inorganic waste, or we can also call non-biodegradable waste. This waste cannot be broken down by the biological process, of course, because these are the plastics or the metal cans, polythenes, so they cannot be broken down by the microorganisms. Okay, right? So these materials will be acted upon by physical process. Physical process means the temperature. It means temperature by the nature. The physical process means the by the nature. Suppose the temperature is high sometime. Okay, so in the high temperature, the plastic bags or the metals um, can reduce. Okay, and many types of physical process are there, like heat and pressure. But under the ambient condition found in our environment, these persist for a long time. So I told you that they cannot be easily easily broken or easily can make the environment friendly. So under the ambient condition in our environment, they persist for a long time. Okay. So right, we can reduce this waste by recycle or reuse. So only we have only option that we can reduce this waste by recycling or the by reuse. So in the recycle, what we will do, we will take all the non-biodegradable waste, and in a factory we can produce new from those waste. We can produce new product. Okay, like from the plastic we can make the plastic again. Okay? So these are the answers, and this is how you can write. Now let's move to the next question. Next question is asking about the, is it correct that food chain is a part of food web? If yes, no, yes or no, give your reasons behind. So this is very common question, and it is important question also, because you have to tell them what is food chain and what is food web, and is it correct. So they are asking for your views that it is correct that food chain is a part of food web or not. So let's see. These are important questions. This type of question is important because you have to write in a very particular way, because the examiner here in this type of question, the examiner only seeing that how you can write it, how you can present in your copy. Okay, so let's see. Firstly, you have to tell them what it is asking. It is asking that if yes or no. So yes, the food chain is a part of food web. Now you have to tell them why. Firstly, you have to tell them yes. Now you have to tell them why. Why food chain is a part of food web. And the question is also asking for the reasons behind it. Okay, and your views. So you have to tell them your views and the reasons also. So every organism needs food to gain energy, right? And they form the series of organisms feeding on one another. So every organism is depend on another organism for their food and for their energy. Okay, so they form the series of organisms feeding on one another. This series or organisms taking part at various biotic levels form a food chain. So this series form a food chain. Okay, right? And all the food chain in an ecosystem interlive and form a food web. So we know what is food web. Food web is the group of food chain. Okay, but we have to present it to the examiner that why it is a part of the food web. So we have to tell them step by step. So firstly, we will tell them why it is necessary that food chain and food web, why it is necessary, because every organism needs food to gain energy and food. So they form the series by feeding one another, and this series is called the food chain. Now food chain is complete, and now we will tell them that all the food chains in an ecosystem interlink and form a food web. So now we told them that from the food chain, the food web is formed, because the food web is the group of all the food chains. So now we will tell them what is food web or the characteristic of the food web. So food web is broader than the food chain. Either an individual consumed by large number of predators, or it consumes multiple other creatures in a food web. So we can say that food chain is a part of food web. See, in a food web, there are many type of food chains, and every predator or the consumers, they consume multiple organisms or they predate multiple organisms. So there are many food chains, and all the food chains are interlinked with another, and this is how we can say that the food chain is a part of food web. At last, you have to conclude that why you can say that, or why your views towards yes or no. Okay, so at last we can conclude like so we can say that food chain is a part of food web. Okay, now let's move to the next question. I hope this is clear for you. Okay, here. Rohan studies in class 10. He found that his voice became heavy and his height also increased suddenly. What is the reason behind all of his characteristics? So at first you might be confused. What is the question? What is type of question and what it is asking you? Okay. So you have to put yourself in place of Rohan. So you are all in class 10th and you all in your teenage. Okay? And what type of the teenage? In the teenage, our sexual maturity appears. Okay? Our sexual maturity appears by our body, by our hormones changing. Okay? So this question is all about the sexual maturity. What is sexual maturity? Because the question is mentioned that Rohan studies in class 10, and from the class 8th or 9th you can see the changes in the body of the boys or the girls. Okay, because they are turning into the teenage years. So he found that his voice became heavy, his height also suddenly increased. So these are all the characteristics of the sexual maturation. What is the reason behind all of his characteristics? So the examiner or the question present you a case, okay, of Rohan, and you have to tell them that what are the reasons behind it. So you know that it is a sexual maturity. Now we will see how we can write in your exam. See here. In your exam, you can write like this, that the reason, firstly you have to tell them what are the reasons, then you have to describe them. Okay. Then you have to describe. Firstly, if you describe first, so the examiner might confuse and the answer which is looking the answer which is looking by the examiner, they do not find. Okay, so firstly you have to tell them what is the reason behind all of Rohan characteristics. So the Rohan behind the reason behind all of Rohan's characteristics is that his body shows sexual maturity. So the examiner see the answer that the child knows what are all the case. Okay, so his body shows the sexual maturation. Now you have to tell them that what is sexual maturation and why it is happening in Rohan's body, and all those characteristics which are happening in the Rohan's body, how we can relate them to the sexual maturation. Now you have to tell them, like in early teenage years, a new set of change occurs in our body, in the body, like thick hair growing to new parts of body such as armpit, genital areas, hormonal changes in both boys and girls. Okay, and so now you told them that there are certain sexual maturation characteristics which is present in both boys and girls. Now you have to tell them what are the special characteristics boys begin to have in the teen age years. So that's how you can relate with it to the Rohan, because Rohan is a boy. If there is a girl in the questions, you have to tell them the girl's special characteristics and you have to relate with them in the question. Okay, so right, so now we will tell them the boys special characteristics. So boys began to have new thick hair growth on the face like mustache. Okay, heavy voice, increasing height. So now see here, you have concluded the question in your answer, like heavy voice, increasing height. That is what is written in the question. So it is a period of life during which body begins to develop reproductive tissue. It indicates that body is preparing for the reproduction process. It is a gradual process. Okay, so this is how you can complete the answer. Firstly, you have to tell them the reason behind it, the reason behind all these Rohan's characteristics. Secondly, you have to tell them what is the sexual maturation. and for both boys and girls. And if the question is asking for the boys, you have to tell them the boys characteristic, boys special characteristics, then you close your answer, okay, with relating to the question. And if there is girl, so you have to tell them the girl's characteristic at last and conclude the answer with relating to the question, okay. Now let's move to the next question. Now let's move to the next question. Yeah. So the next question is, why do we need sexual reproduction when we already have a sexual reproduction? Also tell the 3 limitations of the sexual reproduction. See, firstly we have the asexual reproduction, okay. Like it is for the single cell and the multiple cell also, like the unicellular organisms and the multicellular organisms also. But later we have the sexual reproduction. So the question is asking, why do we need the sexual reproduction if we already have the sexual reproduction? Okay? So in the sexual reproduction, we need 2 parents. And in the sexual reproduction, we need only 1 parent. Parent for the reproduction. So there are some difference between the asexual reproduction and the sexual reproduction. So the later comes always better than the previous. That's why we use the later one. Okay. So the sexual reproduction is better than the sexual reproduction. Why? Because they represent variation. And you know that variation is very important for the species to survive in the environment, for the existence of the species. So the sexual reproduction represent the, or in the sexual reproduction there are variations, okay, and these thing is absent in the sexual reproduction. Suppose there is an environment calamity happens, and somehow a drastic things is happened, like the temperature increase suddenly, or that there are cold, okay. So the bacteria or the species which can survive in the moderate environment, so they did not survive in the hot temperature or the hot environment, and they wiped out from the environment, or the whole species would be wiped out from the environment. And in the variation, what happens? In the variation, there is certain individuals in the species that they can survive in the hot environment also, because the variation comes for a see, the variation does not from one generation to the just another generation. These come from long time, okay. So there are generation and generations. So after thousands of years or after hundreds of years, the individual is present which have the some minor changes or some changes in the some changes in the species, in the individuals which are different from the parent, Suppose there is cell division happens and the DNA is transferred from the one cell to the other cell, another full cell. So some minor changes in the information is there, and that minor changes is called the variation. So these variations come from the sexual reproduction, and these are important because see, in the variation there are changes in the individual that is different from the parent. Suppose the parent is survived in the hot environment, and the individual is also survived in the only the hot environment, and suddenly the environment changes and environment becomes cold. So the parent will not survive in the cold environment, and this also become die. But if there is variation that they can survive in the hot and cold both environment, the information is changed, so they can survive in the environment the cold, okay, and that's how they can exist, and that's how they can maintain the existence of their species, okay. So these are important. That's why the sexual reproduction is important. Now in the next step you have to tell them the 3 limitations of the sexual reproduction also. So how we can write them, we will see in our next video. So till then, just revise all those things which which I told you, and just divide all the questions also and how to write, and we'll meet in our next class, right? So thank you for joining the class. Thank you again.